This question says, how do you plan on reducing the prison return rate? And I think it's related to the issue that a few years ago, South Phoenix gained some notoriety as home to one of the zip codes, the zip code in the United States that had the highest rate of recidivism, when people were returning to jail. So how do you plan on reducing the prison return rate? What could be done at the city level to address that?
Well, I think at the city level, what we really need to do, and it starts before they get into prison, actually, we need to start showing kids how to be responsible job-wise. Educate them outside the classroom. Educate them about life, about waking up early and going to work. I started work when I was 13, so I've been working ever since. And as far as the recidivism rate, I think we need to also create or somehow partner with businesses to get these guys jobs. I mean, if they come out of prison and they don't have a job, what are they going to do? They got to find something to do. They got to find somewhere to live. I'm not saying it's right. I don't agree with it at all. But people will do what they have to do. And if you're going to feed your family and you don't have a job, you're going to figure out some way to do that. So I think we need to partner with businesses and start getting them at least some basic jobs, and then give them an opportunity to kind of go from there.
Thank you. Ms. Lowry.
This is another big subject here, reducing prisons. And I have a program for kids. You have to start real early with the child. And the child, if he's hungry, and the mom and daddy may be locked away and he still has to eat, the child will go into a Circle K and steal something. Now, if some activities are not going on in the community for that child will get into something. He might run with the wrong people. Before you know it, he's being locked up. And then it starts at an early age. I have babies that have been locked up at 11 years old, 15 years old. We need after-school programs and loving people to come in and work with these babies and show them a better way of living and put some money in their pockets. Give them some jobs.
Thank you. Lawrence Robinson.
I was at Peace Park a few months ago after one of the shootings right at 16th and Rozier, and we were doing a silent witness campaign in the neighborhood to get folks out to report about this crime, this murder, this string of murders that aren't often reported, even in the media, because they happen so often in that 85040 zip code you spoke about. And when we knocked on those doors, guess who was home alone? It was kids. It was kids without something to do. The most crime occurs between the hours of 3 and 6 p.m. Why is that? Because when you've got single and working families, you don't always have someone watching those kids. And I don't want to live in a city where we don't programs. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you I'm for the kids and for the neighborhoods, and also not level with you about how we're going to fund them. Now, we're going to fund them through that food tax. And we're going to fund them through that food tax until 2015 when we come up with a better solution. But I'm going to honestly tell you, if we cut it now, as Councilman Johnson said at the City Council when they voted to cut it, we're not ever going to replace those programs. I'm the one candidate who will fight to restore time.
Thank you. Kate Gallego.
We need to start working with people before they're released to make sure that they have a good, safe place to live, that they have the skills they need to get a good paying job. We need to make sure that they're in programs where they have support services. It's a tough transition, and we need to make it as easy as possible so that people can stay out and contribute to our community. I'm a strong supporter of the Housing First model, where you get people into stable housing. I'm also a strong supporter of making sure that we have good job training programs that are responsive to the needs of employers, and that we really go out and partner with institutions, including community colleges, but others that say, what are the needs, and make sure that the programs are about getting people into jobs that exist. And then we need to bring in more good jobs to the community. We need to focus on economic development. Working in that industry, it's been frustrating for me to see us compete with communities in Texas. They're so much more aggressive about getting the kind of jobs where people can make things, where you can learn a trade, where you don't have to have a college degree. So we really have to have the full spectrum of services to give people the opportunities they need.
Thank you. Pastor Stewart.
We serve these people virtually every day at First Institutional Baptist Church through our FIPCO Family Services Incorporated Social Services. the problem is complicated. First of all, you have to look at the justice system. The vast majority of young men that go to prison for nonviolent drug-related crimes. And they learn how to be criminals also inside of the prison. The other piece is the partnership of public and private sectors, nonprofits, the government, faith groups, corporations coming together and looking at the problem as it is and seeing how we can help these persons get back on their feet once they return. Not only are the majority of those in this district have a high recidivism rate, but the largest number of sex offenders are also unloaded in District 8, and that needs to change, and I will change that when I'm elected city council person.
Thank you very much. Next question will lead off with Carolyn T. Lowry. There are several questions related to public safety. This one states, morale is at an all-time low in the police department. How would you work with the city manager to fix this? Ms. Lowry.
Well, I'd sit down and talk to him right away and see what he thinks. I'll tell him about what I know and what the two of us have to come up with some solutions on how we can work together. It takes two people to work together and make change, you know, and I need help. So I think that that's a job that we would have to work on together and see what in the world that we could do working together. I don't know no other way to do it. The chief is a chief, you know, and what can I say? Our problems are heavy, and we really, I would be interested in seeing what he thought about my community.
Thank you. Lawrence Robinson.
Well, there's no wonder morale is low. I mean, when I was a staff attorney down at the legislature, one of the committees I served was the Military Affairs and Public Safety Committee, and I see the Tea Party element of our state trying to dismantle everyone who might possibly be in a union or in a public sector job. But then I look at our city, and I see the same Tea Party elements beginning to seep into a city council that used to be nonpartisan. The fact is that 400 of those police officers' positions are still open, minus 11. Now, we fell 11, but we still have the rest of the 400 to fill. Part of that is due to funding, and we gotta be honest about that. So when your job is at disarray, and you may not be funded, then of course the morale's gonna be low. The other part of it is I worked on the community engagement and outreach task force that Councilman Johnson appointed me to. By utilizing community policing measures, we can make it better for the communities and the cops. And we can make sure that they're safe and our communities are safe, that they understand ethnic and cultural practices, and that they really work with the community. One other idea I have is an identification card that will not require citizenship, so that when people who are undocumented need to talk to the cops, they have a way to do it via a city function. These are all ways to help out.
Thank you. State Labor.
We have a long history in Phoenix of making sure that our employees have the opportunity to share their ideas to make the city a stronger city. And I'd love to see the police department do more of that. Sit down with the officers on the street, ask them for their perspective, make sure that they're an important part of the decision. Some of these decisions are big picture decisions, and some of them are smaller details, but we need to have a partnership with our employees. We need to know that they're the ones on the ground knowing what things are like and that they are a valuable partner, that they have important information about when they should be working and how officers should be allocated. And I would love to bring back that tradition of working hand in hand with our employees. And I think that we're taking some great steps already towards that, but if the council can help, then that's something we need to step in and do.
Thank you. Pastor Stewart.
The chief of police is a direct report to the city manager. And so therefore, the city manager is responsible for his performance, how to evaluate his performance. As a city council person, I would work with him where I would be allowed to help, to be a mediator, to work with them, to work out any of the problems that are happening between, that are going on between him and the police department. The other thing we have to remember is that this is the first time we've had an outsider to come in and be the police chief of the City of Phoenix Police Department in decades. And so we're used to internal leadership rising up to the top. And so there's a natural resistance to this new kid who has come here from another place. But that does not mean that he should not have periodic evaluations and problems addressed, and him to present plans to alleviate the problems that are going on in the police department. Thank you.
Luis Rodriguez.
Well, I used to be a police officer for a little time, a little short period of time, so I can understand the morale problem. I can see where it would happen. One of the things I would say is maybe they're just being overworked, because they've only gotten 11 police officers in 2008. And we're short 300 from where we used to be in 2008. So maybe that's a problem. Maybe we just should concentrate on what the city council is supposed to do, and make sure that we fund police officers for the size of the city. Nobody can say that the city hasn't grown since 2008. So, I mean, it's a basic problem. We're failing as a city in the basic function which it's supposed to do, provide security for the city. And when you got not enough cops on the street, you bet their morale's going to go down. They're working a lot of extra hours, a lot of extra shifts. You're spending time away from your family. It would affect anyone. And I think the first thing is we got to look at getting more police officers.
Thank you. Let's stay on the public safety theme for another question, starting with Lawrence Robinson. What are you going to do about police accountability in light of recent police shootings?
It's that community policing model. And there really shouldn't be this perception and this gap between the police and the communities. Often that's not reality. And if you use a community policing model, you're actually vesting the power back into the community for what practices occur. Another thing is funding school resource officers. If you fund school resource officers, kids will understand that cops are not the enemy. And they get to understand that you can nip some of these problems in the bud early on and understand that cops are there to serve them and their community. But when it comes to widespread accountability, it's simple. Transparency of the city. Our mayor has done a very good job in increasing transparency measures. But if you or I go on to the Phoenix.gov website, it's pretty hard to find some things. We need to make it more searchable, and we need to make it accessible to people digitally so that they can file complaints and we can see statistics, aggregate them, and understand that there are patterns in our community that provide less accountability toward the police force.
Thank you. Kate Gallego.
It's been hard to talk to our community action officers and learn that the people who are doing a lot of the preventative work are being cut back. They're having to go on patrol because there aren't enough other officers out there patrolling. So those are the people who do preventative programs and who educate the community. And I've been sad to see those cuts. I think that's very short-sighted. I've also been sad to see that we've been cutting back on training, which is an important part of making sure we have the strongest police force available and that they are well educated and have the tools to prevent some of the difficult situations we've seen. So it's short-sighted. Sometimes being cheap is not the best way to do it, and we really do need to invest in public safety, which will be a top priority for me.
Thank you. Pastor Stewart.
Police officers need to be held to high accountability as any other governmental official. And there are citizen advisory boards and committees that evaluate and they investigate when there are challenges with the police department's behavior or their activities. So that needs to continue to press forward. But in addition to that, relationship building. It is so extremely important that the police build relationships with those in the community. I learned as I visited some block watches in District 8, one not far from here, that the reason there are more police officers in the northern districts is because the residents call the police officers more, and that the police department assigns police officers based on the frequency and the number of calls that they get. And so if people will trust the police officers more and the police department to come and address their needs, then they would be able to call them more. So you have to build a trust level that will alleviate some of the problem. The police officers must be held accountable.
It's time. Luis Rodriguez.
Well, I agree that if a police officer does something wrong, then he needs to be held accountable for that. I believe strongly in the rule of law. And so let no one forget that. But additionally, a lot of these problems, it's a self-inflicted gunshot wound, okay? When we decided to say we're going to tax you and that's going to help the police department, and then we don't use the money for that, why is anyone surprised that the police department is having problems with relationships in the community? Why are we surprised that there's not enough patrolling? Why are we surprised that there's not enough police on the street? Why are we surprised that we have to take away the community action officers? Why are we surprised that we have to take out the officers out of schools? This is no surprise, people. We're taxing you. We're not using the money, your money, for what it was supposed to be used for. And that's where the nugget goes. That's where the crux of the problem. Government is supposed to provide security, and we're not doing a very good job of it, and we need to get back to it.
In January, we had a 3-day Dr. Martin Luther King Festival, and we didn't have very much money to put that event on. So guess what? You had to go into the community and train people from the community to be cops for 3 days. We saved ourselves a lot of money. There were no fights. Everybody got along beautiful. Hey, we just have to learn to get along. Now, as far as the chief, I fought police brutality in the past, so I don't want to say too much because I don't want them to throw me off the stage. But the thing about it, we have a lot of police brutality that goes on in our community, and especially with my people, the black folks. Y'all know that. But I'm willing to sit at the table and forget about all the negative in the past and see can we come up with some solutions to stop disrespecting one another and treating each other like it. You know what I'm talking about. We got to work together. That's all.